It's fall, y'all, and along with that fall comes some cozy tea drinking, coffee making, and extra special desserts. So welcome back to my kitchen, and in today's video we are going to be doing something a little extra special. I am teaming up with my sister from another mister, Ms Leona from Ebony, Ivy, and Thyme with Leona, and we are going to be bringing to you a series of fall desserts. These desserts will be perfect for Sunday dinner, family gatherings, and even to celebrate the upcoming holidays. So once you're finished here looking at the 5 desserts that I have to share for you, you want to head on over to Ms Leona's channel and check out the 5 desserts that she has to share as well. Let's get it started. So for this dessert, I wanted to make a pound cake without all the bother of putting together all the ingredients needed for a pound cake. So for this quick and easy dessert, I am making a pear bundt cake, and I am making it in my tube pan so it'll have that pound cake look, but it's going to be a lot quicker and easier. And the hero of this particular recipe is going to be my Pillsbury moist white cake mix. Pillsbury, can't go wrong with that. A can of pears, sliced pears, which I will chop. And of course, my ancient tube pan. So I'm going to grease the bottom of the pan. And if you've got cooking spray, you're welcome to use that instead. And I'm greasing the bottom of the pan. Not all up the sides, but just the bottom of the pan. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of flour to dust the bottom, to coat the bottom, just to kind of help it release when I'm ready to flip it over. I've greased the bottom of the pan and I've also dusted it. So now I'm going to set that aside. I can get this out of the way. Now I'm going to cut these sliced pears up. And these are the reduced sugar sliced pears. And I'll give them a rough chop. And I drain them and I reserve the liquid in another container. And you know pears are awfully soft. So they'll cook down in the batter nicely. So now I'm going to place the pears in this bowl, as well as the syrup. And now I'm going to add my box of cake mix. And I'm giving this a good stir. I've got 2 egg whites. And 1 egg. And then I'll get out my hand mixer. And remember, for safety's sake, you put the beaters in before you plug it in. And I'm going to beat it on low for about 30 seconds. Then I'm going to beat it on high for 4 minutes. a long time. At least that way when you're beating and you're watching the fire. Okay. Now I am going to pour the batter into this prepared pan. Now we're going to put this in the oven at 350 for about 50 to 55 minutes. Now I'm going to let this bake for the next 50 to 55 minutes, and when I take it out, I will check it by inserting a toothpick in it to see if it comes out clean. If it does, I'll consider it done and I'll set it on a cooling rack, and then I'll dust it with a little bit of confectioner sugar and let it completely cool. In the meantime, I'll clean up the little bit that I've got out and I'll come back. Now I can't say this enough. Make sure that your mixer is unplugged before you eject your beaters. And I know some of you are probably thinking, you got that lovely KitchenAid stand mixer, why aren't you using it? Well, I do use it, but what I wanted to share in this dessert series is that you don't have to have a fancy KitchenAid stand mixer to be able to put good desserts on your table. And so many of my young homemakers don't have this. So I wanted to show what you could do with a hand mixer. So the cake baked for about 50 minutes, and then I took it out, and as you saw, I inserted a toothpick in it and it did not come out clean. So I put it back into the oven for about another 5 minutes, and I did set my timer to make sure that it would be fine. So now it's been setting long enough for it to cool. So I'm going to get it out of the pan. So I'll take a knife, I'll just go around the edges. And also around the tube. And then to get it out, I'll just turn it over like that. And then turn it back over like this. Now, it's still just a little warm. So I think I'm going to let it sit here for just a little bit longer on the cooling rack. And then I'm going to just sprinkle the top with a little powdered sugar. So just a light dusting with the powdered sugar. Now I'm just going to cut a little slice. It looks delicious. And look at the crumb on it. The crumb on it looks good. Mmm. Moist, fruity, Absolutely delicious. Perfect for family gatherings, church socials, or holiday get-togethers. Now let's take hubby a slice. This video is brought to you by Aprondiva. Pretty and practical, we believe that an apron can be a homemaker's best accessory. Visit us at www.aprondiva.com. And if you like that cozy pear bundt cake, you're going to love what's coming up next. Rich, chewy, and chocolatey. A chocolate caramel bar that is the perfect balance between sweet and indulgence. So I am getting started with a chocolate caramel bar, or shall I say chocolate caramel bars. And I like bars instead of cookies sometimes because I can spread them in a pan, cut them up into so many squares, and then they're ready to go. And these are the perfect bars if you need to take something to school, something to a church potluck, a family gatherings, or just for something that is chewy, chocolatey, and feels indulgent. These chocolate caramel bars are perfect for that. I found the recipe on Taste of Home, so I will link it in the description box below. But the hero of the story is going to be these craft caramels, these classic craft caramels. Some Nestle semi-sweet chocolate morsels, and a box of German chocolate cake mix. And yes, I am using a box of cake mix because when you young moms, you homemakers, seasoned or otherwise, are in a hurry and you need to get a dessert quick, a boxed cake mix as a jumping off point can be your best friend. So let's get this one started. I'm going to add 2.5 ounces of evaporated milk, and I'm going to let these melt. And while that heats up, I'm going to grease my dish so it's ready when I'm ready for it. And this is one of my new dishes that I got from KitchenAid. And this recipe calls for 5 ounces of evaporated milk, and you put 2.5 in the chocolates to get them melted. And you definitely want to keep an eye on it because you don't want to burn these caramels. And I tell you what, I forgot that these were all individually wrapped until I opened them. So of course I had to take some time to get the wrappers off. Oh, it's melting down nicely. Look at that. And I'm stirring continuously because I don't want this to burn or to scorch. Okay, we're going to get this off the heat and set it aside. Okay, so now that the caramels are melted, I need to cream this butter until it is soft and fluffy. So that looks pretty good. Now I'm supposed to add my cake mix and my remaining milk. And the recipe actually called for 5 ounces of evaporated milk. 2.5 ounces I put in the caramels, and now I'm going to put the rest of it in here. Make sure I got all the powder mixed in. I probably should have started mixing that cake mix with the spoon first. But this is working. I've got my oven preheated to 350. Got my dish already greased and waiting. Got my caramels melted. Okay, so now I'm going to spread half of my dough into the bottom of this 13 by 9 inch pan, or I should say dish. And I did grease it already. Now I'm going to put this into the oven for 6 minutes. It's just half the dough, but it's going to go in there for 6 minutes. So I'm going to let that bake for 6 minutes, and I did set the timer on my microwave so that I know when the 6 minutes are up. Then I'm going to pull that out, and then I will spread the layer of chocolate chips over that, and then I will add the layer of caramel on top of that, and then I will just kind of drop the rest of the batter, this, in spoonfuls on top of that, and then we'll put it back in the oven and see what it looks like when it comes out. I cannot wait to taste it. In the meantime, I'm going to clean up some of this. Alright, so now we're going to sprinkle this with the chocolate chips. And this is 2 cups of the semi-sweet Nestle's Toll House morsels. I remember when I was a little girl, there used to be a jingle. Nestles, Nestle's makes the very best chocolate. So let me know who remembers that little jingle and what it used to be on. Now we're going to pour the melted caramels all over the chocolate chips. This just smells delicious already. And it was so quick and easy. So if you need to take something to school for snack for your kids, something for a church social, or just for a quick family gathering, this just looks like it's going to be amazing. Now we'll just drop the remaining dough on top. Now it goes back in the oven for another 15 minutes. And to all my homemakers out there, and a homemaker is anyone who is creating a warm, cozy, nurturing space in which to live. It is not 1950 anymore, so I'm not just talking about a housewife. But if you're creating a cozy and nurturing space in which to live, you are making a home. And one of the tools you need to have in that home is a 13 by 9 inch pan. And it can be something as simple as this 13 by 9 inch pan that you can pick up for less than $15, or it can be something as nice and as fancy as my new KitchenAid dish that is in the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, and when that comes out, I'll come back. Ooh. This looks absolutely amazing. I cannot wait until it cools so that I can cut it into bars. Now I am going to cut these into bars. They're nice and soft. I can tell that just by cutting them. The caramel or caramel with the chocolate. I think I'm about to let these sit a little longer. Now here are those bars, and it's been a good 8 hours that I've let them sit to cool, and they turned out quite nicely, but they do need to cool for a good little minute. But you're talking delicious. Absolutely, positively delicious, and definitely ready for the holiday table. Now, if chocolate's not your thing, it's okay. I've got you covered, because coming up next is a warm and cozy classic. We're heading into my kitchen archives for a definite crowd pleaser and one of my family's favorites, peach cobbler. I like a really buttery crust on my peach cobbler, and I like it to be soaked in peachy sauce goodness. So you're going to see a lot of juice or a lot of sauce in this peach cobbler. Sometimes I just like a crust on the top, and sometimes I like the crust on the top and bottom, because the more crust you have, the more it can soak up that peachy sauce goodness. So we're going to have a double crust on this cobbler. So we're going to need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. And then we're just going to whisk that together. Give that a good whisk, just so we can get those all mixed throughout. And I'm going to be using 2 sticks of butter. And I've had my butter in the freezer for a bit, because I like for my butter to be good and cold. And I'm going to cut that butter up into little cubes, and then I'm going to work it into this flour mixture. I'm going to set that back just for a second, and now I'm going to cut my butter into cubes. And 2 sticks of butter is 1 cup. If you don't want to use this much butter, you could go with 1 stick of butter, which is a 1/2 cup, and then a 1/2 cup of shortening. And this butter is unsalted. I want to make sure I say that. Now we're going to add our butter to our flour mixture. Now you can use a pastry cutter to cut this butter into the flour mixture, but if you don't have one, it's okay. And actually, I prefer to do mine the old-fashioned way. I just take a knife, or rather 2 knives, and just cut the butter into the flour mixture. And once it gets cut up to where I think it's good, I might even rub it just a little bit. But you want a nice crumbly mixture. Now, in case you're wondering what did I mean by rub it, you just pick up the flour and the butter mixture and you just rub it together like that. And that just really kind of helps to get it into the flour. And then once I get it to where I want it, get this butter cut in, I'll add my water. I'll add almost a 1/2 cup of water, but not quite. I'll just sprinkle it in a little at a time once I've got my butter nicely cut in. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Look at that. It's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to start to sprinkle in my ice water. Just going to knead it. And it's still a little sticky, but I can see it's coming together. Now that I've got it out of the bowl, I'll just put it on this lightly floured surface and just knead it gently. And it's come together nicely. I'm liking the way it's feeling. Feels nice and soft. Yeah, I'm loving this. Alright, so I've got it in a nice little ball. You can kind of see some of the lumps of butter there in the crust mixture. And I'm going to put this in the refrigerator and let it chill for about 30 minutes while I make my peach mixture. I've got everything cleaned up now, so I'm going to go ahead and get this dish buttered. And I like to use this dish for cobblers. It's nice and deep. So I'll set it back there. And now we'll get started on the peach cobbler filling. I'll just drain the juice off of one of these cans of peaches and reserve it just in case I need it later. Because as I said, I like a lot of juicy peach sauce in my cobbler. And I've got 2 of these 29-ounce cans of peaches. One is draining and one is not. Also going to add my sugar. And there's a cup of white sugar. And I've also got a half a cup of brown sugar, teaspoon of nutmeg, teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of lemon juice. I just kind of like the tartness that the lemon juice adds. And 2 tablespoons of butter. And I give that all a good stir. I'm going to set it on medium heat for about 20 minutes and then we'll come back and give it a taste. These have been cooking for about 25 minutes and I like to check to see if I can cut the peach with a wooden spoon. If I can do that, I know it's time to turn it down to a simmer and get my crust ready. Got my dough out the fridge, so I'll get some flour on my counter so that I can use that. Flour my rolling pin. Now we'll get this dough cut in half. I put the other half in the fridge until I was ready to work with it. So now I'm going to get this rolled out. And this is for my bottom crust. I've got lots of juice in mine cobbler. And I want to be able to soak up all of that goodness. And let me get my dish. That way I know what I'm working towards. I wanted to get about 1/8 inch thick, just not very thick at all. Now I saw this recipe for using a brown sugar and cinnamon mixture on the crust that goes on the bottom. So I'm going to give that a try. I've not tried that before, but I do like cinnamon and I love brown sugar. So I'm going to give that a try. This is looking pretty good. And you just kind of bring it back to you, just back and forth. Keeping the rolling pin lightly floured as needed. And then when you're ready to lift it, it's sticking a little bit, so I might need to get some help here. I could have floured it a little better, it looks like. But I'll get it folded in half that way. Fold it that way. I like to fold it into quarters. And then I put half in the dish that way and just kind of unfold it. And my dish has been buttered so that I've got room to maneuver it. Looks like I need a little bit more up on the sides. Trying not to tear it. And if you didn't want to make your own pie crust, you wouldn't have to. You could just buy a box of Pillsbury pie crust that has 2 pie crusts already made, and all you got to do is roll them out. And I have been known to do that, but I do enjoy making my own when I have the time. Going to pull this up just a little bit more because once it starts to bake, it's going to shrink down just a little bit. Now I found the idea to put the cinnamon sugar combination on the bottom of the pie crust from a website called Divas Can Cook. And she was making a peach cobbler too. Whereas I like cinnamon, I don't like too much. Okay, so let's set that aside. And I'll get the other pie crust ready. I'll try to get a little bit more flour. And I like to go towards me and away from me. And since I'm not trying to do a circle, I want this to be more linear. Okay. We'll get the strips made to put on top of the dish. I'll just get these rolled up and set aside so they don't stick to the counter as you saw the other one did. Now it's time to pour this in. Okay, now let's get that crust across the top. So I've got it set for 350 and I'm going to let it bake for about an hour. And yes, I have entirely too much juice in that dish, and I knew it when I poured it in there, but I did it anyway. So that's one of the reasons why I put that cookie sheet underneath, to catch the drippings that runs off. And then once it's probably baked for about 15-20 minutes, I'll brush the top of it with some melted butter and sprinkle some of that brown sugar and cinnamon topping on top of that. So we'll come back. This butter topping with the sprinkled on brown sugar is just going to make this peach cobbler taste all the more amazing. And then back on the oven it goes. And you see I've got 2 cookie sheets working now. One so that I don't get anything on the door, and one that I don't get any drips in the oven. Look at that. Doesn't it look absolutely delicious? I can't wait to dig into it, but I'm going to have to because it's pretty darn hot and I don't want to burn my mouth. So I'm going to let this cool and then I'll come back and I'll scoop a little bit of it out and give it a taste. But I already tasted the sauce, so I already know it's going to taste absolutely delicious. But now I just need some of that delicious buttery crust along with that peachy sauce. And here's my question for you. How do you like your peach cobbler? Do you like one with the top crust and the bottom crust? Or do you just like a top crust? I was talking with a couple ladies at the beauty shop yesterday, and we were talking about how to make peach cobbler. And Mrs. Russell said she doesn't put a crust on the bottom. She just likes a top crust because the bottom crust gets all soggy. And I'm like, I like that juiciness in that bottom crust. My beautician said crust on the top only. And then, of course, Mrs. Russell said you got to make peach cobbler with fresh peaches. And I'm like, Mrs. Russell, where are you going to get fresh peaches at this time of the year? She said she froze some. She put some in the freezer so she'd have them ready for peach cobblers and peach pie in the winter. Well, I missed peach season, so canned peaches it was. And my friend, my beautician, said she only uses canned peaches. So there's always a little bit of a discussion about who likes this, who likes that, but they always turn out beautifully. So again, my question to you is, do you like yours with the crust on top only? Or do you like a crust on the top and the bottom? Or do you like it any way you can get it, like I do? Listen to that oldness. Plenty of sauce. Plenty of sauce. Amazing. Now the only thing missing is a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top. And let's take care of that right now. From peaches to apples, we are keeping those fall flavors going. What's coming up next is a moist apple walnut cake. And this little beauty can serve as a breakfast loaf or dessert. It's perfect with coffee or just because. Your family will love it as much as mine did. Let's get it started. So now I'm ready to make the apple walnut bread, and the first thing I do is give my apples a good scrub. I'm using a fruit wash that I made with vinegar and water. And probably the hardest part about this whole process is peeling and coring the apples. And I only had 3 apples to peel and core, so it really wasn't that bad. And I love this OXO vegetable peeler. It just makes it so easy. And then I sliced the apples up into 8 sections. Then I remove the cores and make sure that all the peeling is off of the apples because nobody wants to get peeling or seed in their apple bread. And I save these apple scraps so that I can make apple jelly later. And because I've been handling the apples, I do like to give them a good rinse before I chop them. One of the things I like to do is clean as I go, so when I can, I'll wash up whatever equipment I've been using and get that out of my way. You can use two 8.5 by 4.5 inch loaf pans, but I wanted to put my apple walnut bread in a tube pan. I just like the way it looks, and I like the way it comes out when I bake in a tube pan. However, when you use a tube pan, it is important that you grease it and flour it well. To get started making the bread, I need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt. I also needed a cup of chopped walnuts. You can use pecans if you like, but I had a bag of walnut pieces in the fridge that I needed to use up. Then I mixed my dry ingredients together, and those dry ingredients included the flour, the baking soda, the salt, the walnuts, and 3 cups of chopped apples. Now it's time to turn my mixer on, and I was really excited. Since I just wanted it to mix at a slow speed, I set it on 2. And once or twice during the mixing process, you might need to scrape your bowl. If so, you want to make sure to turn the mixer off, unlock it, raise the tilt head, and then scrape it as needed. And then when you're ready to resume mixing, you're going to put the head back in place, lock it, and then set it to the speed that you want to use. And since this stand mixer is new to me, I am being very careful to follow the instructions and turn it off when I need to manipulate the attachments. Now it's time to get my wet ingredients ready, and those wet ingredients include 3 eggs beaten, 3 cups of sugar, 1 cup of vegetable oil, and I add the beaten eggs to the sugar and the oil, and then add in 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. I start out giving that a good whisk, and then I switch over to a wooden spoon so that I can give it a good stir. Now it's time to pour my wet ingredients down the chute. And I was really kind of intrigued the way it just went down the little chute nice and neatly. I didn't have any spills or splatters. It was really kind of cool. And once again, I'm going to turn my mixer on, and I'm using the second speed because I just want to mix it thoroughly. My batter is mixed, so now I'm ready to pour it in my tube pan. Before I do that, I unplug the mixer, and then I remove my beater, and then I set the mixer out of my way so that I have room to pour the batter into my tube pan. And notice I'm rotating the pan so that I'm evenly distributing the batter in the pan. Now it's time to pop it in the oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for about 90 minutes. After about 85 minutes, I checked it. I just kind of pressed it down in the center just to see if it popped back up, and it wasn't quite ready, so I let it bake for about 5 more minutes. This time I'm checking it with a toothpick. The toothpick inserted in the cake should come out clean. So I do that once on each side of the bread. The toothpick is clean, so I can take the bread out of the oven. And here I am pressing it again. I don't know, I'm just old school. I like to do that. I let it cool in the pan for about 10 minutes. Then I take a butter knife and run it around the outside edge just to make sure it's loosened up. And then I also run it around the inside edge on that tube. And you want to make sure you do let it cool those 10 minutes, because if it's too hot, when you flip it, a lot of the cake might be clinging to the tube, and you don't want that to happen. Now that's what I'm talking about. This apple walnut bread looks absolutely amazing, and it is the first thing I've made with my new KitchenAid artisan mixer, I should say. I hadn't planned to cut it just yet. I was going to let it cool just a little bit longer, but my husband wants a piece like now. So I'm going to go ahead and serve him a piece, but take a look at the inside. Look at there. So it looks really good. It's nice and moist, but it is cooked all the way through. I baked it at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for about 90 minutes, and it's looking good. So now let me give that a little taste. It's delicious, and it's not too sweet, so it'll be perfect in the morning with tea, coffee, or hot chocolate. And to finish it off, we're going tart, sweet, and festive with my cranberry bog bar. It's going to taste like the holidays in every bite. And the hero of this little piece of holiday magic is cranberry sauce. And cranberry sauce, because it's festive, it's delicious, and it just gives you that holiday feeling. And bars, because they're just easy. Once you've got them cooked, just cut them up into the appropriate size, and you've got bars. A lot easier than cookies, so let's get this one started. So the first thing I'm going to do is to cream a cup of brown sugar and about a half a cup of butter. And I'm going to use my hand mixer to do that. But notice I'm going to put my beaters in before I plug it in, because you don't want to have your hands messing around those beaters once you've got it plugged in. Got my oven heating to 375. Now I'm going to cream the brown sugar and the butter. And I want to do this until it's light and fluffy, so it's going to take about 5 minutes. Okay, that looks good. Next, I'm going to add in the flour and the oatmeal. And actually just 2.5 cups of oatmeal, because I'm going to be using some of the oatmeal later. So we're putting in 2.5 cups of oatmeal with the cup of flour into this creamed brown sugar and butter. There goes the oven. So my oven is at 375 degrees. So it's ready when we're ready. So let's get this mixed together. And I love a crumble. Apple crisp, apple crumble, cherry crumble. I love those dishes that have oats in them. So just love me a good crumble. And this dessert is mixing up pretty quickly as well. There's not a lot that goes into it. I will be putting some pecans in it. However, if you've got someone that needs to be nut-free, you can leave them out. I got out my blending fork, and all it is like a meat fork, those large meat forks, but I use it as a blending fork, and what it helps me do is just kind of blend up some of those little lumps like this, where the brown sugar is kind of lumped up. This will just help me take care of that. So now I'm going to put it in the bottom of the dish. And I lined this baking pan with some parchment paper, just because when I get ready to cut it into bars, I want to be able to lift it out of this pan without any trouble. And I didn't want to have cut marks in the bottom of my new baking pan. So now I'm going to spread this with this cranberry sauce, but first I'm going to give it a good mix, because you know when you pour it out of the can, it'll come out in like a little log. So I want to make sure. And then we're just going to spread it. Okay, so now I'm going to set this aside for a minute. And I'm going to put the rest of my butter and the rest of my brown sugar and pop it in the microwave. So I'm going to stir together that melted butter and brown sugar, the remainder of my oats, and the pecans. I'm going to just dump these in there. You guys know my tendency to go with the bowl that's too small. I'm just going to dump these into this bigger bowl. Now I can add the pecans. Okay, this is mixed together pretty good. So now we're going to sprinkle this oatmeal mixture all atop our cranberry sauce topping. And I can see where kids would love this. You've got the sweet, the chewy. All right, let's put this in the oven. So that's going to be in the oven at 375 for 25 to 30 minutes. When it's done, I'll come back. So this is what it looks like coming out of the oven. So I'm going to let it cool and then I'll cut it into bars. All right. Here we go. So these look to me like almost like granola bars. Let's try this little corner one right here. I suppose I should let them cool a little longer, but these are good. So the important thing, let them cool off first. But they taste absolutely delicious. And if you want to learn how to preserve all those fruits you've been baking with, check out my course, Yes You Can, A Beginner's Guide to Waterbath Canning. I walk you through step by step how to do waterbath canning, and you can fill your pantry with all the goodness that you want, and you'll know exactly what's going into each jar. I'll put the link in the description box below so you can check it out. And don't forget, when you're done here, hop on over to Ms Leona's channel at Ebony, Ivy, and Thyme with Leona Dooley. She's also making 5 sweet treats for you to try this fall and holiday season. And next week, we're going to be bringing to you a series on one-pot meals. So we're going from sweet to savory, and we're going to be bringing you some one-pot meals that are not only delicious, but they're quick and easy for busy homemakers. You won't want to miss it. I'll see you next time.